Hi, my name is Dave Reske, CEO of Now Speed Marketing, and welcome to this edition of Marketing in the Now, where we focus on uncovering marketing myths with some of the world's most interesting people. And my guest today is Maria Sweeney. She's a fractional CMO and currently CMO of the Mom Project, and also with many years of experience at B2C brands like Hasbro and Reebok, and also B2B brands like Reach Higher and Accutech Blades. Maria, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Before we start talking about marketing, tell me about the Mom Project. That sounds so interesting.
Oh, it's great. It's been a great experience. I actually, through Clear Edge Marketing, came upon this opportunity to join the Mom Project as their fractional CMO, and it's been a really great journey. The company is shifting, to more of a sales and marketing driven organization. But we help moms get back to work. And I think it's amazing. We give them those opportunities. We're a two-sided marketplace, a proprietary two-sided marketplace where, staffing and recruiting becoming one part of that, but just really white glove service to help our client categories. So whether that be direct product, channel, we really support a variety of different clients and fulfilling their staffing needs across many different job types. So it's really wonderful. The mission, the purpose of supporting moms on their journey, their career journeys, the economic impact that has, it's just a really wonderful way to show up and work every day. Gives you that purpose, and I love having that. So fantastic team, but awesome mission. So really happy to be supporting them on their journey.
That's awesome. So what an amazing mission of helping moms get back to work, and you're changing many lives through that. So that's awesome. Well, you've worked both in large B2C organizations and also B2B organizations. So I think you have a lot of experience to tackle this marketing myth that we're going to explore today. And the question that we've been talking about is brand engagement. And so the myth I want to throw out there is marketing is all about brand engagement. Do you think that's true or not true?
I think there's some truth to it, but I do believe there's more to it. So, brand engagement is crucial, right? That's a focus, and that's I think what most people believe is the first thing that comes to mind when you think marketing. But for me, and in my experience, and just truly having been more in that digital space, what I believe is even more important is the metrics, the data, right? It's really understanding how to craft performance marketing to drive a business, be it B2C or B2B. I think it's really critical. You have to figure out the strategies that are going to resonate with your audience and know that that digital journey that most of us take when we're trying to find a product, a service, whether it be in our day-to-day lives or our professional lives, is very nonlinear, right? You might search something up, you're seeing something on social media, you may get an ad, you open your phone, these crazy things pop up where you're like, they're listening to me. Well, to some degree, but I do believe taking all of that data and that information and really understanding it to help your brand or your product to really know what story you want to craft, really getting a lot of that detail, understanding how they hit those different touch points just makes us very smart as marketers. So knowing it's not this straight path and it is complex and multifaceted, my belief really is the role of metrics is going to give you those insights to their behavior, right? It's going to not only help you to understand their behavior, but to craft the right solutions for them, or maybe redesigning a product the right way. There's lots of different ways to look at that. But I think to answer it is really that you have to continuously refine that and continuously understand and listen to your audience. And to do that, you have to be able to capture that data. And companies do that in lots of different ways. They have incredible dashboards. Sometimes it's social media, and you're just sitting there and you're looking at your brand channels and the commentary that's happening, or conversations around, your industry that are happening on a platform like LinkedIn. So I think gathering all of those insights, not just your click-through rates and your cost per acquisitions, although those things help you to define what your budgets are, but really truly understanding the needs, the wants, and like I said, that journey. So, personalizing your messages, knowing what your attribution modeling will look like, and how are you testing things and using that predictive analytics to really adapt and anticipate the behavior, and then analyze some of the historical information that might come your way. So I think for me, it's, again, brand engagement is important. You have to elevate your brand. You have to humanize who you are or what you do or what you sell. And that's really critical. So people know to look for you or think of you. You might be top of mind. But that being said, you still have to take that data, those insights, and really be able to craft your strategy around that. So it's smart and it's nimble, right? I think we have to know as marketers, we have to be flexible. This is the digital age. Lots of things change. The platforms we operate on, Google's ever changing, SEO and, how that can be manipulated, how AI comes into play. And I think that we do have to be on top of the insights to understand how to really develop the right strategy. So I would say while brand engagement is absolutely important and the branding as a whole as a marketer, just prioritizing your data so that you can just navigate some of those complexities and, modern behavior really, I think is what is pretty critical. So for me, I like to say I'm a performance marketer first and foremost. That's what I do. That's the way I like to operate. I'm also a very curious person. So data and insights is really fun for me, just to kind of get at it and find those little nuggets of information that go, aha, and can change, your path as a business or just, your future forward.
So that's you said a lot there. So let's kind of unpack some of those pieces one at a time. So the idea of the buyer's journey is really part of that, right? So when we talk about brand experience, there's all kinds of experiences that could happen. There's the experience of like learning about the brand, engaging with the brand, going through a purchase process, and it's different B2B and B2C. So there's all these things. But why do you think marketers sometimes look at it very simplistically? So sometimes as marketers, we say, oh, well, let's say take a B2B example. Oh, well, what's going to happen is somebody's going to do this generic search. They're going to come to my website. They're going to download the white paper. Then they're going to read about the product, then sales is going to call them, they're going to buy something, right? We think it's like this one little straight line. It's all going to happen in about 15 minutes, right? And we're just going to like be this really nice. We're going to measure the the click, we're going to measure the open, we're the click, the conversion, and the sale. And that's really the whole thing. Why do we think it's delude ourselves maybe into thinking that it's so simplistic?
Wishful thinking.
Wishful thinking, right? Yeah.
I think we followed and we always have followed this like standardized funnel of top, mid, bottom, and that's the path they're going to go on. And ultimately, they're looking at competitors, they're looking in other places, they're fact finding, they're gathering information. They're going back to the person that holds the pocketbook to inform them about why this is the right approach or tool that they would want to use. And I think in that process, there's just lots of different resources to find that information. So I say nonlinear because they do bounce. They may get, go to your search, they may get that ad, they may get your email, they may get the phone call. But in between all of that, their lives are happening, business is happening as usual for them. And I think that they're taking those inputs, if you would, to inform larger decisions. And then they're going out and they might restart their journeys. They may be thinking about their business differently or other options. Maybe they saw a competitor and a service that they might provide. So now they're digging in and looking at different places. You might provide those same services, but maybe your initial marketing didn't come through that way. So if your messaging might be off or you're seeing high bounce rates, you might want to start thinking about how do I tweak that? Okay, I'm hearing a little bit more about, widget A or a functionality for a product. But I didn't see that come through on maybe the first, piece of marketing material I got. You can start to recognize that by doing the testing, knowing the different formats you can share information out. And I think along the way, you're going to see you'll capture them in different places. Even things like webinars, I think that's become a really big thing on LinkedIn where you get thought leaders together having conversations, then people start the process of networking and saying, that was an interesting idea. I want to make a connection with this person and start building a relationship. So I think it happens, not just in this very linear, straight format of I've given them all the things, now they should be ready to make my decision. No, they're being informed real time with real people as well. So I think you have to take all of that into account. And yeah, I think it would have, long ago, we probably could have followed a more linear journey. But the digital world today, there are so many different options, right? And there's so many different ways to gather your data, your information as you're trying to make decisions. I also just believe that it's by design too, that the Googles of the world are opening things up to try to provide as much information as they can on the upfront. And people sometimes do rely on that initial insight and information before they even go on their journeys. And so I think you have to take into consideration your messages are not the only ones out there, right? They're coming in lots of different ways. So being aware of that and knowing how to play to that and continue to add that value and nurture the relationships. And as I said earlier, show yourself as more a humanized element of your brand. People buy people. At the end of the day, I think that's what it's all about. So nurturing relationships takes time to build trust. And you do that through your content. You do that through, like I said, your networking relationships. So I think it becomes more complex because there's a lot more layers than there once used to be.
Yeah, and I think that that's a big thing that's happening. So we've all seen different stats on like the part of the buying process that's now digital exclusive. And let's can use maybe a B2B example. In the past, maybe like 20 years ago, you might have had like you gotten a direct mail piece, you go to a website, and then you call the sales rep and you have this detailed conversation. Tell me about the product, tell me about the pricing, tell me about competitors, how does it fit? Let's get an engineer involved, maybe, do a technical analysis. Now, so much of that buying experience happens really through the web and through online, right? So you're exploring social media, reading content, you're watching videos, all of that stuff. So you have to be there. So do you think marketers are doing themselves a disservice if they don't, you know, provide all the content that the buyer needs in all channels and kind of an omni-channel world to gauge them wherever they are?
I think so. I think you have to be ready with variations of different types of content. You have to meet people where they're at, right? And I think that's a really critical piece is that don't expect them to come to you necessarily. Be ready for them. So as they're doing their searches and they're on their journey, you have varied content too. You go to a website, you might expect to see a case study. You might even go to LinkedIn and read an article that's relative to that case study. So you have to be prepared in those different areas where they might consume that. And like I said, adding that variation. So to some degree, it's unique and you're servicing the platform that it's on, right? So I oftentimes too, when building social strategies, for example, you cannot craft the same piece of content that you would for LinkedIn, for Facebook, and for Instagram. You might even have different audiences on those pages for your brand and what they expect of those platforms. Instagram's super visual, you've got a lot of, stories and reels and consuming information that way versus LinkedIn. It's, you have your feeds, you're linking off to articles, like I said, but the expectations of that content are different. So I think having a strong and solid content strategy it needs to be meaningful, it needs to be designed for all the places that it's going to be. So your website might also be very different too. So I feel like that's a very important piece as marketers. We need to prepare for that and prepare for the right formats of content. It can't always just be a case study. You have to be ready with testimonials that people will give honest reviews of your business, your product, whatever it might be. And I think that goes for both B2C and B2B. I mean, how many times do we go to Amazon before we buy anything? I know me personally, I'm clicking on reviews and I love the ones that show actual photographs of something or they might have a video. And so knowing that you're going to not only vary the content itself, but the formats you have that content in, and again, make that suitable for the appropriate platform.
So let's say you're a really good marketer and you've thought through the buyer's journey and you've thought through all the content that's required through the buyer's journey, and you've made that all available in multiple places on social media, on multiple channels on social, on your website, review sites, et cetera, like that. As a performance marketer, what do you feel like you can measure and kind of really understand what's going on to help you understand what's going on? And what do you feel like you just have to believe about the world because you can't measure it and you just have to invest in those areas whether or not you can see the results or not? Or is everything measurable to
I
you?
think to a degree, nearly everything is measurable, right? You truly could, even down to a video, you look at views. Well, that's great. I had 1 million views. Well, wonderful. But what was my view through? How long did they actually take to get to that content before they said, man, this isn't of interest or I've had enough? And that could be, oh, maybe I need to shorten my content and I need to get that message up front because I really want them to hear that. I do believe that you can look at a lot of that data to truly inform how you're going to move forward. But I think as marketers too, there's a level of instinct you do need to have in a marketplace. And when you're competing against other brands, other businesses, other products, I think you do have to have a belief in who you are, what you do, be it your mission and what you stand for, and know that that is your true value. And you hold fast to that. I don't think you can let go of some of those pieces. So you can look at all of your data and insights, like I said, to inform and adjust what you're creating and developing. But you do have to hold true to who you are. And I think making sure that you're confident in that is also really important too. And I think that's where the human element of, selling comes into play, especially in the B2B world. As marketers, we do all we can. And I firmly believe that sales and marketing should have the tightest relationship in any organization. Like you will only be successful when you understand what your sales team needs. And I can't fully inform that. They're on those calls, they're on the front line, they're on the calls, they're having dialogue. So I leverage that human element of tell me what you're hearing. What is the feedback that you're getting to help me make those adjustments? So in some ways, it is that real dialogue that you hear that helps make the tweaks and changes. So you don't see that in the data and insights, but you do see that in the relationships you build internally with your organization. So I think making sure, you're breaking down silos, you're truly connected as teams. And even your customer service departments, right? I always find they're a wealth of knowledge. Again, they're a front line. They're hearing it from customers. They understand that feedback. And some of it is repetitious. So looking there and saying, oh, that comes up a lot. That's a question you're fielding every day, whatever it might be. I think leveraging some of that, and again, that's all the human side of what we do, will also help make you a better, smarter marketer and a more connected organization, quite frankly.
Yeah, I love that. I think you're talking about doing detailed research, building relationships with others in the company, and really understanding that to create those insights and core beliefs that are going to help you create the positions, the strategies that really make the most sense. And it feels like sometimes marketers, maybe even, and maybe, as an agency, we might be guilty of this. We are so focused on the numbers, the analytics, which ad performed, which landing page worked, which offer converted, that you can lose that. But if you do lose that, you lose that core strategy, those core ideas. So it seems like as a CMO, you've got to keep your foot in both worlds, right? You got to keep your foot in the strategy and understanding these insights and also the data. How do you do that? How do you keep your head in both
Oh,
places at the same time?
some days, or some weeks, I should say, it feels easy and seamless. And others, I think you have your typical fire drills and all sorts of things might be happening in the business. But I think I go back to relationships and just making sure you're having that communication as an organization, because I can look at the data and the metrics for the marketing. But if there's other things happening in the business and we need to find efficiencies, or we need to shift dollars to another direction, or another piece of tech that the organization might need, or a product innovation, I think you have to be prepared and understand sometimes that value may not be coming through marketing, and being flexible. And like I said, just the partnerships that you have to be able to help inform you, keep those regular communicate lines of communication open. I think that's where I feel, for me, the balance is, if you have that connectivity, that dialogue happens, you get that detail. You're also educating and informing your counterparts. So they have a similar amount of information to then make decisions on their end too. So it's really just working together. I know that sounds kind of like really old age of, hey, we all have to be on one team, but I think it makes a huge difference. And I think that's why you see organizations that are successful, is because they are investing in the culture as much as they're investing in all the other areas of the business. They see that as the big value, because you have to communicate and you have to really inform one another of what are the best decisions and come to those collectively, right? Have an open mind about, hey, this might be important to me and it's meaningful for me, but there may be another area of the business that I'm not sure is stressed or needs a level of support. And so I think just, having healthy debates and good conversation, gets you to the best place possible for the business, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what everybody is working towards, whether you're a CMO, a CFO. We're saying we need to be financially healthy. We need to be developing the right products. We need to be profitable. So how do we come together to make those fully informed decisions and align to all of that before we take our next steps?
Yeah. Absolutely. You got to be aligned on all of that for marketing to work. Marketing can't work in a vacuum if the product's not there, the budget's not there, the investment can't be made, all of those things. So that makes a lot of sense. I want to come back to this idea of brand engagement, though, and some of the things that you shared, some of the tactics you shared. What are your favorite ways, if you had to share some thoughts to our audience about people that really, really want to make a difference in brand engagement today? What are your go-to tactics that you think that are most effective these days that you'd always, kind of go back to time and time again?
I think in a B2B world specifically, I think creating the content, but video specifically, and even more specifically, testimonials, right? Get on the phone with your customers, build the relationships, invite them to be part of the wins that you celebrate with them, invite them to be part of the successes that you've helped develop for them. And have them help you communicate that to the rest of the world. I feel like it's super simple. It can come in lots of different formats, these are things that don't have to be fully polished. They don't have to be these fancy, Super Bowl ready type videos or commercials. These really can just be like raw conversations that you have. And, I think you have to remember, you don't always have to paint yourself in this best light. Like those are the gold standards of, yes, this is the best company I've ever worked for. And they do all these wonderful things. But I think you have to find it as relatable as an audience member. So it's okay to say, hey, we had a misstep here, but we were able to turn that around. And here's how we saw success. Truly being authentic about that, I think, is critical. So really it's that authentic video content, to me, I feel like, as a tactic, works really well. And, especially in the B2B world, I think that it's what builds trust as a whole. And at the end of the day, if you're creating things that help you to build trust, help people to build trust in your brand and in your business, you're going to win.
Yeah, that's really good advice. We just have a few minutes left. I want to spend a little bit of time on performance marketing metrics that you started to talk about. One of the challenges that I think many CMOs have today is there's so many metrics, right? There's dozens of metrics in every channel, whether we're looking at website analytics or email analytics or advertising analytics or engagement analytics, right? So there's just so much. What are your top analytical tools? What are your top KPIs that you look for as a senior leader to say, are we on track? How do you
Yeah.
kind of think about those metrics?
I think across all the businesses I've worked on, the cost of the customer acquisition, I think, is a
Mm.
really important metric. And I think you can look at that differently depending upon who you're talking to. There's always your cost per acquisition cost in the marketing world. But when you load that and you understand, then how do you layer in the sales costs or other areas of the business, you can get a really good picture of, all right, here are all the dollars that we're investing into acquiring a customer start to finish, right?
Mm.
And beyond that, even right now, you have to nurture that relationship too. And I think you have to take into consideration all of those areas to fully inform, are we doing this right? Are we spending the right volume of dollars? Are we overspending our dollars in certain areas? And how do we take that out to be a more profitable company? So I look at that when I say cost of acquisition, I look at that as a much greater level of inputs. I also think that, engagement is another big one. And we say brand engagement, but engagement as a whole, I think that's a really important metric to understand the interest of, people have in, be it your content or any of the materials that you might be sending out. And I think beyond engagement, when you look at a number, you also have to do the listening. And that's not necessarily a quantitative number, it's qualitative. It's a gathering of information to really understand the voice of your consumer. So that, you could say that is or isn't a metric in terms of numbers, but voice of consumer, to me, that's a really big one as well. So sort of when you compile those as my top three, I think really help to start paint a picture of how much of what we're doing is the right thing? How is this helping us to be profitable? And am I really listening? And do I really understand what my consumer wants so I can craft the right messages and, again, make adjustments to product or messaging to speak to them in a more authentic way or to speak to them in a more relatable way. So those are a few of my top ones.
Yeah, those are great. I love those. So it's really there's direct investments that you can measure, the direct response, and then there's these indirect things. Maybe it's like PR or events or other things that are a little less direct to measure, but you've got to make investments there as well. And then there's the insight, right?
Mhm.
It seems like, and maybe it's because we're a performance marketing agency, we're really focused on that first bucket. But do you think, marketers are investing enough in the market research, the insights to kind of get them or do you think where management just kind of intuitively believes what they believe? Is market research a core investment that, people are spending enough money on, or how do you
I don't
think?
know that people spend enough money on. I think that's a challenge for a lot of organizations, right? And I think it depends on, what industry are you in? What are you trying to create? I think there are certainly some that require much more of that research done ahead, even ahead of your product development to truly understand what is the right fit. I think it's hard for a lot of companies to keep up with the right research, because by the time you formulate it, you gather it, you tabulate, some of it could be out of date. So I think that is a challenge. And I think that's why it tends to be one that doesn't get nearly enough funding. I think that it's important. I think a lot of organizations see that more as a nice to have as opposed to the need to have, because they can gather so much data from other places, and can be nimble and quick about it, and probably lower cost about it. Research is expensive, right? And again, it takes time, but I think it is a good investment, and it's certainly the right investment for the business. But I think there's a variety of reasons why you're not seeing line items for that year over year, right? It's just a challenge.
Yeah, but one way or another, you've got to come up with those core beliefs. You got to come up with those insights. You got to come up with strategies that make sense, and then you've got to measure all your campaigns against that. Well, Maria, this is a fascinating conversation. Interested and your different perspectives on this. So thank you very much for taking the time. People want to engage with you further on these topics. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
You could email me, or because I am a fractional resource, calibratemarketing.us is my website. You can certainly come and check me out there. You can certainly find me on LinkedIn, Maria Sweeney. Happy to connect, love networking with people, love having thoughtful conversations like this. So I'd say LinkedIn is a really great place to find me. And yeah, make a connection. I appreciate it, David. This was awesome. I really enjoyed having a conversation with you, and thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Thanks for having the conversation too, and thanks for taking the time.
Awesome. We'll talk soon.